Celestia Quicks, where the content goes places most wellness blogs actively avoid, and the honesty is sharp enough to cut through a decade of misdiagnosis.
This episode follows one sustained, unflinching argument about lifelong trauma, what survival actually looks like when the mental health system keeps failing, and why the word healing may be the wrong frame entirely.
Let's start with that argument at its core: survival over healing.
The post opens a question the mental health industry rarely asks honestly. What does recovery mean when the abuse never stopped, the memory never fades, and the system kept getting the diagnosis wrong? And the answer is direct. The post puts it this way: there is no healing. There is just adapting and coping.
That line is doing real work. It separates the clinical promise of recovery from the lived reality of someone who entered the mental health system at 19 and is still navigating it at 65. The post traces exactly why that gap exists. Hypermnesia means memory does not fade or filter. Trauma is not a past event, but a continuous, active neurological presence. You cannot let go of what the brain is biologically incapable of releasing.
The post uses a precise analogy for this. Your eardrums cannot heal when you never leave the shooting range. The environment is the problem, not the individual's effort or attitude.
And the environment here is not metaphorical. The post documents decades of family scapegoating. A 2019 family murder-suicide that preceded institutional abandonment and ongoing cyberstalking and harassment, abuse that is still active.
The diagnostic history compounds this. The post details a sequence of misdiagnoses: treatment-resistant depression, bipolar II, GAD, schizotypal, OCD, borderline, all based on presenting symptoms, with no formal extended assessment until December 2022. That assessment returned a very different picture: level 1 autism, complex PTSD, and MDD rooted in lifelong family scapegoating abuse, with hypermnesia.
Which explains why the treatments failed. CBT assumes the thoughts are distorted. They were not. They were accurate recordings of an ongoing threat. ECT, 12 rounds of it, does not touch a system problem from the outside.
DBT did provide some utility, the post notes, precisely because it does not argue with your perception of reality. It builds distress tolerance for a situation you cannot change. The post frames the gains from that work as scar tissue, functional, necessary, but not restoration.
The post draws the distinction cleanly. Plastic surgery of third-degree burns is not healing. It is fitting in.
The systemic abandonment after 2019 is documented in detail. Medicare panels full across 2 states. Peer support groups calling the situation too complex. BetterHelp unable to match a therapist after 2 weeks. The infrastructure that exists for mental health support is not designed for cases that do not resolve neatly.
The post also names the genetic dimension: SPINK1 hereditary chronic pancreatitis and a CFTR-related disorder, both without cure, both treated as medical facts. The post's observation about that double standard is pointed. No one blames the person for a genetic mutation, but the same logic is not extended to a brain shaped entirely within an abusive environment from age 2.
The post closes on a systems diagnosis, not an individual one. Recovery would have required the family system to choose repair. It did not. What remains is adaptation, boundaries, distress tolerance, scar tissue over a wound that was never allowed to close.
That framing shifts where responsibility sits, and where the next conversation probably needs to go.
The argument here is structural. When the conditions for recovery are never present, survival is not a failure of effort. It is the actual work.
And documenting that reality precisely, without softening the language, may be the most honest thing the wellness space rarely makes room for.